Hi and welcome to another episode of ReaperTV. In this video I'm going to show you how you can add some groove and pace to a beat in your drums to give them a little bit of a more human feel by adding in some ghost notes. So let's take a look at how we can do all that now inside Reaper. So before we kick things off in this video, just want to say that this isn't restricted to Reaper. Everything we're doing inside this MIDI editor, everything we're doing with these drum grooves can be done in pretty much any digital audio workstation. The technique holds true no matter what you're using. And finally, if you like what we do on this channel, you'd like to support us, please head over to our Patreon site where you can get access to our tutorials early and exclusive content only available to Patreon supporters. The link is in the description below, and every bit of support helps to make this channel grow, get stronger, and put more content out for you guys. Anyway, that's enough of that. Let's move on to taking a look at how we can add that groove and pace to a drum beat. So for this particular instance, I'm using Perfect Drums by Naughty Seal, which we covered in a recent video. If you want a demo on that and information about that, I'll link in the description below and also pop up in the corner right now so you can check that out if you like the sound of these drums. So this drum beat is pretty simple, straightforward. Let's have a listen to it first of all, and then let's take a look at what we can do to it to make it just a little bit more human and a little bit more interesting. So as you can hear, it's a pretty straightforward groove, nothing spectacular, nothing that's going to set the world on fire. So, what exactly are ghost notes? Well, they're basically incidental notes that are played in between the main beats of a drum pattern, and this is in order to drive it along and increase the sense of locomotion or movement in the drum sound. So, theoretically, it can be played on any part of the drum kit, but in practice you'll tend to find this is normally done either on the hi-hats or on the snare drum. You may get some slight accents and ghost notes in other drums, but generally it's going to be the snare and sometimes the hi-hat that's going to add that momentum to it. So what we're going to do is we're going to see how easy it is to add those in there, and we can take a look at how we can enhance the actual drum tones. So with this simple drum beat, let's go through first of all and just add our first basic note in there. Now I've set this up to my grid to be in 16ths. That gives me plenty of opportunity to be able to add those ghost notes in. So let's identify the snare, which is this one right here. And what we're going to do is we're going to go in and add a second note in there now. So where we're hitting the kick, then the snare, we're going to add an accent note on a 16th beat in between. So we're going to add another snare beat in there. And what we're going to do is make sure that the velocity of that is quite low. So you can see I brought this down to about 25, which is really quite quiet. And what that's going to do is it's just going to give this semblance of a ghosted note behind the first snare hit. So let's have a quick listen to that. So you can tell there we just get that little second ghost note in there, which kind of adds that afterbeat. And if you watch a drummer play, and you'll find a lot of drummers will do this, whether it's intentional or not, it adds that sense of groove in there. So what we can do is we can use that a couple of times now to just give that sense of interest into our drum beat. We don't want to do it on every beat in this instance. You could do if you wanted to, but I want to keep it fairly simple. So what we're going to do is we're going to do it on every other snare hit to start off with. So we'll hit same again in there, so we'll add that in there, make sure the velocity is quite low. Now we've got a couple of kick drums here, and we've got some cymbal action, so I don't want to do that straight away on there with that snare hit. So we're going to miss that one out and jump over to this one. So let's have a listen to that now and see the difference it makes to it, how it adds that extra little bit of a momentum in there. So what you should be able to hear there is it adds a more human element to it, had some extra dynamics in there just to make it sound a little bit more interesting. Now we can take that one step further, we can start adding some more character into this. So let's take a look at what else we can do within this simple drum beat. Well, what we can do is add some extra notes in again, still focusing this time on the snare. But what we're going to do is we're going to add a few more in there. Now, let's just add a second note in and have a listen to what that sounds like. Again, I'm making sure the velocity is different on this one because I want the samples that are triggered to be different. Now you're going to find that pretty much all the drum sequencing software, things like Easy Drummer 2, Perfect Drums, Superior Drummer, they're multi-sample. So in other words, each snare, each drum component has been hit multiple different times in different positions with different velocities, and when we adjust that, it'll change the sample that's being used. Even if we set it to the same velocity, good software, like I say, like Easy Drummer 2, will have multiple samples of the same hit at the same velocity to create some more realism in this. We don't end up with the same sample and we end up with a machine gun kind of sound. So by doing this and making sure the velocity is different in there, we're going to get a couple of extra ghost notes this time, which is going to give it a sort of, as if the snare is being, well, the stick on the snare is bouncing. So like I say, if you ever play the drums or you've ever sort of had the opportunity to have a little go, see what I mean if you're using a sort of loose hand, you'll hit it and it'll bounce on the drum skin. So this is kind of what we're trying to recreate with this. So have a quick listen to this. So you should be able to hear that extra beat in there. Even though it's really, really quiet, it adds that extra little bit of something in there. So we could use that in conjunction with some of the other things we've done. So we could say the first beat is going to have the 2 ghost notes, the second beat is going to have the 1, the third beat 2, and so on. So let's take a listen to that. So it's already starting to sound just a little bit more interesting. There's some more dynamics in there. We're not limited to that. If we want to, we could easily increase the grid. At the moment, we're at 16th beats. So what we're going to do is we're going to change that to 30-second notes. And what we're going to do is we're going to add an extra beat right in the middle of that. And again, we want to make sure that these have different velocities. They don't have to be the same. They can be, they don't have to sort of be lower, middle, and upper sort of in the velocity. You can mix and match as much as you want. No drummer's going to hit it perfect every single time. So let's take a listen to the difference now. We've had that third note in there. So we get a sort of pseudo drum roll with the stick. So it sounds like we're getting that sort of 3-beat drum roll, MIDI drum roll after the main snare hit. So like I say, it adds a lot more character to it. So let's do the same thing again now for the third. So we've now got all of those sections now are using of different variations. So let's have a listen to that. So it's already starting to sound a little bit cooler. So now we've done that and we've kind of got some interest onto the snare drum. Let's move on to the hi-hats and see if we can add a little bit of something into there as well to add some more dynamics into our drum. Okay, so what I want to do now is I want to put a hi-hat, open hi-hat beat in between where we already have hi-hat beats to add a little bit of interest to the hi-hat action that's going on. So I've got hi-hats open. At the moment we're using the half closed, half open. So by using the combination of the two of those, we can add a little bit of extra something. So again, we're going to put this in between. So I'm just going to quickly switch back to 16ths, just to make it a little bit easier to add those extra notes in. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the hats open, and I'm going to position it where I want. So let's have a listen to it first of all. So where we've got this kick drum, this double kick beat, I want to put on that first kick, I want to get the open hi-hats. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come up to the open hi-hat section and add that in there. So let's have a listen to that. So you can see, adds a little bit of extra something in there. We've now got that hi-hat being opened, so we have a bit sort of interest in there. We can again go one step further. Let's just say you want to sort of double up on that. We want to get a little bit more of the hi-hats going on, but I don't want to sort of do the same hi-hat half open, which is quite hard to say with all those H's. So what we're going to do is we're going to come up and we've got the tip of the hi-hats being played. So it's going to give us a nice metallic kind of deadened sound, which goes really, really well with the open hi-hats being played. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to position that where I want it. So we've got the closed tip and I want to put that one beat before. So there we go. That's all we want. So you can listen to it. So providing I got it in the right place, if we take a listen now, we should have a little bit more interest again. So we're kind of getting that double hi-hat beat before the open hi-hat. Again, adds a little bit of interest in there. So by using these simple techniques, we're adding ghost notes in, adding extra notes in, and getting a little bit of sort of interest into your different playing sections, you can really quickly and easily build up really great sounding, very human sounding drum beats. Now the next thing you can take a look at is adding that human element in there. No human is a perfect metronome. In other words, no matter what kind of system they're using, whether on a click track or using a metronome to play to, there will always be a slight human discrepancy in their timing. And we can kind of emulate that, as well as the difference in the velocity everything's being hit, without having to manually change all those, just by using some of the functions inside Reaper itself. And again, every DAW should have this same kind of option, and it allows us to humanize things. And that's pretty much what it's called in most DAWs, is to humanize. So what I'm going to do is, I've got a button set up for mine, so you can see all I need to do is click on that and it'll bring up the options. So if I click on there, you can see you've got a very simple dialog box. We've got two options at the top. Do we want this to apply to all notes? So if we've got nothing selected, it'll apply to everything. Or if we select a group of notes, whether that's a particular instrument, for example, the kick drum or the snare drum, or we've highlighted everything or a passage, we can choose whichever one's relevant. We then have three different options, which are the timing, velocity, and the timing bias. The two things that I'm interested in predominantly in this instance is the timing and the velocity. Now, you don't want to go crazy with this because a 10% difference, for example, can have a massive impact, especially when it comes to the timing. So what we're going to do is we're going to set these to quite low values, and we're going to set the velocity to 3 and the timing to 3. What I'm going to do is I'm going to zoom right in. Now you can see at the moment, all of our beats are perfectly on the line. They're aligned to the grid, so they're perfect in time because they're MIDI, they're not human. So to demonstrate exactly what's going on, I'm going to increase the timing more than I would normally. First of all, let's just select all notes so we know it's going to apply to everything. And you see, as soon as I do that, you can start to see things move. And if I start to bump these up, you'll see all of our different drum elements start to move around the grid. Because what it's doing is it's using that value to differentiate the amount of timing difference or the missed timing based upon the grid that's being used. So what we can do is we can keep this quite low. Like I say, around 2 or 3 should be more than enough for most examples. And the velocity is the same. That'll just give it a little bit of difference in there. So if we've been very sort of methodical in what we've done and everything is very clinical, then this will give it a slightly humanized element. So what we're going to do is click on OK. And like I say, you can see there's now some slight differences. If we scroll over a little bit, we'll see most of these different beats are not perfectly aligned to the grid. You can see they're a little bit before, a little bit after, in varying different amounts. So now if we play this, we should have a slightly more human feel where everything is a little bit just looser. So hopefully what you can see is by using this sort of extra ghost notes to add some character into your drum beats, you can make them sound a lot more human. Combine that with the humanize option where we could just loosen things up a little bit so it's not quite so regimented, can kind of add a real human feel to it, a little bit of swing, a little bit of groove that a real drummer would sort of influence and bring into a song. So there we go, that pretty much wraps up this video. I've covered how we can take our drum beats and make them just a little bit more human, a little less robotic. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a thumbs up and smash that subscribe button to be kept up to date with all the new content we add every single week. If you've got any comments on this video or anything else covered on the channel, please pop those in the comments section below. Until next time, happy mixing.